as discussed last week, I said that I will come back next week, which is today, and talk about reasons nurses are leaving the bedside or the profession altogether, and how you cannot end up unsatisfied in the nursing profession. Stay tuned. Point number one, it's like, why nurses gotta be eating their young? Honestly, I've never really understood this. I mean, I've been a nurse since 2016, and I have personally never been affected by a preceptor or a more seasoned or veteran like nurse on the unit. I've worked in med-surg at one facility, and then postpartum in a second facility, and then now I work as a nurse educator for that same facility for postpartum. I have never experienced bullying or nurses eating their young. However, I have been in rooms where it does occur. As a nurse educator, as someone who runs an orientation program, I make sure that I stand up for those people, because it doesn't make any sense for me to come here as a new grad, or heck, even an experienced nurse or tech, come here to not only better myself, to make money, to support myself and my family, but I'm also here to help you out on your unit, taking care of your patients, but now you're treating me like crap. That's not what we're going to do. I think the first step to do is to say something to the person, and not being nasty or disrespectful, but just being professionally appropriate, and to tell them X, Y, and Z about how what they said affected you and your work or the work environment in general. And then if that doesn't work, go ahead and escalate that up the chain of command. You have a charge nurse, you have a supervisor, you have a manager. You want to escalate these things. Get those incidences in writing, because if it's happening to you, most likely it's going to be happening to someone else, or maybe some new people that start to come in after you. It's going to probably continuously happen to them as well. The sad thing is that bullying is becoming the norm, and I, for one, truly hate that. You know what? I take that back. Bullying has been the norm since decades before I even thought about being a nurse. It is just becoming more prevalent and more known, and mainly I think it's because of social media, because you can actually just whip out your cell phone and start recording someone or an instance, or pop on social media real quick, and that message or that video will go out to thousands or millions of people, and now everyone, not just people in the nursing field, will be able to see how it truly is. Really, I think that's one of the reasons why people think bullying is normal, because it's now out in the public and people can see it more so than 20, 30, 40 years ago, when we didn't have cell phones readily available, or video cameras and social media readily available to record those instances, or for people to actually vent their feelings out online. Point number two is this nurse to patient ratio. Now, where I am, because like I said, I work on postpartum, it is 1 nurse to 4 couplets. Couplet is 1 mom and 1 baby. And then if you have twins, if that mom had twins, you now have 4 moms and 5 babies. Unless one of the twins or both of the twins went to the NICU, and now you just only care for that 1 mom. So that means 8 patients, because we treat a mom and baby as 2 separate individuals, because we treat the mom and the baby like 2 separate people, because they are. They each have their own MRN numbers. They each have their own FIN numbers, all these things, armbands, everything. So we have to treat them as different people, because they truly are. So you think you only have 4 patients, when in actuality you have 8 patients. And I'm going to be honest, you got to take care of yourself. Your license is yours. Your license is not the hospitals. Your license is not the clinics. It is yours. That is what you work for. You either accrued student loan debt for it, or you had someone, family member, mom, or who paid it off for you, so you didn't have to pay for student loans, or you yourself worked probably 2 and 3 jobs to put yourself through school. You're not just going to let anyone take your license away from you. No. You're going to work hard to maintain that license and also not be in jail. If you look at the Redonda Vault and Christiane Gainey's cases from a few years back and how it was all in the news in 2021, 2022, you will realize that it is a serious, serious job. If you had not realized nursing was a serious job before, go to those cases. Nursing is serious. Don't think it's just a glamorous position, a glamorous profession. It can really help you and guide you and get you to where you need to go professionally and developmentally, but you have to be the one to take care of yourself in order to get there. If you don't have a license, you can't utilize your license to open up that med spa and be an esthetician, or you can't utilize your license to now go and be a nurse educator or a professor somewhere or teach clinicals for rotation. You can't do that. And even if there are a lot of nurses in the healthcare field, some of them will probably never ever return back to bedside because of how they were treated when they were there. They're anxious, they're overworked. Let's say you have a postpartum unit of 25 beds. Now, what is going to be considered short staff is if you only have 5 nurses for that unit, because that means that each nurse will have 5 couplets, which means 10 patients. And that means they will be stretched thin. A good nurse ratio is 1 to 3 couplets, which is A1's standard and guidelines. However, there are so many hospitals that do not abide by this rule. I know a lot of other facilities and departments will go up to 6 patients. So not the couplets, but just having 6 patients, whether it's on a med-surg unit, a cardiac telemetry unit, which is pretty scary. The sucky part is it can increase to 5 couplets. I have never seen it increase past 5 couplets because being in 1 to 4 ratio is difficult. Being in 1 to 5 is dang near impossible. But those nurses where I work extremely hard. They're extremely patient and caring, and they truly do care for their patients, and they truly do their very best to not show how stressed and overworked and burned out they are. Their patients have no idea. A reason why a nurse would have 5 couplets or 6 or 7 med-surg patients or cardiac patients is because of short staffing. It could potentially be the surgeries that are occurring. So for instance, in L&D, there might be a ton of C-sections. Moms are not given the opportunity to labor. And if they aren't given the opportunity to labor, they start to schedule inductions, which means there are more patients coming in unnecessarily. Maybe they're coming in 4 or 5 days to even a couple weeks earlier than what their due date was, because doctors or hospitals want to get those moms in and out to get that revenue for the hospital. And honestly, you can't blame nurses for not wanting to work bedside. You know, they are anxious, they are scared. Some of them, they are overworked and underpaid. Short staffing is no joke. Nursing is just a lot of responsibility. I mean, hands down, 100%, a lot of responsibility, a lot of advocating for your patients, but also for yourself. You know, medical errors account for, I think, it's in the top 5 reasons why people die in the United States. Medical errors. And if that doesn't scare you, then I don't know what does, you know? Point number 3 is managers are not managing, and managers think they're leaders, but they're not leaders. Now, the two are not interchangeable. You can be a manager and lead, or you can be a manager and not lead. And then you can be a leader and not be a manager, or you can be a leader and you can be a manager. I hope I didn't confuse you. But managers, well, they manage, they oversee, they deal with patient satisfaction, they deal with JCO, which is Joint Commission, the accreditation unit, they deal with OSHA, they deal with HCAP scores. Their focus is a little bit geared more towards satisfaction and hitting standards and bullets versus leading the change or leading the unit. Now, there are, like I said, great managers who can do both. However, on a grand scale, managers cannot lead as well. I recently heard someone say that a lot of hospital systems value profit over patients. That is something I want you to think about, little marinate on. We will not get into that in this video, but that's just something to ponder. We have computers on wheels or workstations on wheels, and instead of having something that's a handheld, something that's easily accessible, we're having to push these humongous machines, these humongous computers up and down the hallways, in and out of patients' rooms, especially if you work night shift. And here you are working night shift, pushing this big old computer into the room, waking up everybody and their mama just for you to give this medication or check to see what the baby Peter pooped, instead of either having something that's handheld and you can scan that medication, scan that armband, and it's not making so much noise and disturbing everyone down the hall. You ever thought about when you're rolling your computer down the hall and you got hardwood floors and the noise that it makes going down up and down the hallway, those patients' rooms, I'm sure they're in there probably pissed because you're making so much noise at 1 o'clock in the morning. But you can't help that because that's the computer that you were told that you had to use, and now you have disturbed the entire unit trying to pass out one simethicone to your patient to get her to pass gas. Point 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is medical equipment. It is, some hospitals are still utilizing charting on paper. I know this is our year, Lord, 2023, and some facilities are still paper charting. I don't know how. Or hospitals are using systems that are not as savvy or user-friendly, and it makes it a lot difficult for nurses and staff to document in the systems because we're having to document every 4 hours on 5 to 10 patients, or sometimes even more frequently than that. The last point I'm going to make is pay. Say you are a new grad nurse. You come in making, let's just say, 28 bucks an hour. You've been there for a year, year and a half. You've received your first merit increase, and it was only 2 to maybe 3% of your base pay. That's cents. 2 to 3% of $28 is $28.56 through $28.84. So you mean to tell me that after busting my butt working a whole year at this hospital, I've only made 56 cents or 84 cents an extra an hour? Say you've been there that year, year and a half, and then you have a new grad that comes in, and now you have to train this new grad, but this new grad that's coming in with no experience is now making $30 to $32 an hour, and here you are stuck with your $28.84. They will talk about their pay on the units. Of course, HR always tells them, compensation always tells them, you're not supposed to talk about your pay, but everyone does. That's an extra reason why I would assume that nurses would leave the bedside at this particular facility or hospital and go somewhere else because the pay is more competitive elsewhere. That's it for this video. That's all I had. But if you want to know of some solutions, something that could potentially help you change the culture and the environment on your unit at the bedside, please let me know. Drop it down in the comments. I don't mind making that video, especially from a nurse educator's perspective. And if you want, you can go to my website, ifrn.org, for some nurse resources. I have 2 downloadable PDFs. Go ahead and check that out. And until next time, I will see you later. Peace.